Tango 1 at the top, we are at Pop-Up Vehicle. 10-4, Tango 1, you have control. Tango 1 copy. Stand by. Stand by.
Integrity, passion, resilience. That's what this place was built on. That's what our community is founded on. Don't act like the example, just be the example. This is the home of the greatest fitness community in the world. We're trying to create strong, able bodies, resilient to injury with a gas tank to get shit done. If there's one thing from this podcast, it's about taking immediate action, find the problem, fix the problem. This is your opportunity. It's either a hell yes or a fuck no. It's that simple. You're doing that. The Tango 1 podcast. Now is the time to take action. Now's the time to do more and be more.
Nice to see you again in a couple weeks.
Yeah, nice to see you too, man. This is awesome.
Yeah, so everybody, welcome to Tango 1 Podcast. I'm here today with a new exciting guest. I'm really looking forward to talking to this guy. We just met a couple weeks ago and really hit it off. It was pretty fun, so I thought it'd be awesome to have on the show. So today, coming here from Ottawa, just outside Ottawa, is Randy Turner. He is the owner of Direct Action Combat Performances. He's a 21 years of service in the military. I didn't realize you're in there so long until I read your bio. 5 years with the storied Princess Patricia's Canadian Light Infantry, and then 16 years as an assaultant with JTF2, the Joint Task Force, number 2 with Canada Special Forces Command. He also fought professionally for 10 years, retiring from competition in 2018. During his MMA career, Randy was ranked in Canada's top 10, including 2 different weight categories, bantam and flyweight, and Randy became a bantamweight champion in 2012, defending his title in 2013. Bro, you're kind of like me. I feel like we're not that old, but then when I read your bio, I'm like, oh, this guy's been around the block a bit.
Yeah, feeling good still. You know, I'm 43. I'll be 44 this October. And, you know, most days I feel like I'm 25, but there's the odd day where I feel like I'm 175.
Yeah, I feel you. I'm 43. I'll be 44 in September. And we were talking last time. I'll tell you a good story about feeling 25, then 43 all in 1 minute.
Yeah.
I did those police games I was telling you about, and there was 8 events. The third event was the 100-meter dash. First event was the 5K. How backwards is that? So we did the 5K, then I did a shot put, which was no problem at all. I never thrown a shot put, but I won that event. And then 100-meter dash. First of all, I made the mistake. I put on my turf spikes that I coached my kids baseball in to run the 100-meter dash on an AstroTurf field, the new turf, the field turf. First 70 meters, man, I'm 25. Like I'm at the front of the Titanic. The wind's in my face. I'm so happy. And then boom, a sniper shot me from the bleachers. Hamstring popped.
Oh no.
The muscles popped, the muscles behind my knee, limped into the last 30 meters. And yeah, it was like a stroke of lightning. I went from 25 to 43 all in one 11-second sprint, or ended up being 13-second sprint. So that dropped me down. But still won my age group, but I was looking for the all-around win, which kind of cost me there because I finished all the events, but I couldn't make my time in the swim or the obstacle course on one leg. So,
oh man, how's it feeling now?
Pretty shitty, man. I went away for a cottage for a week and walked around on the rough terrain. I didn't use my crutches like I should have, and fished, but it was all worth it. Now I'm home. Now I'm nursing it, so hopefully, 4 to 6 weeks I should be pretty back to normal.
Right on the mend. Good stuff.
Yeah, so yeah, that's what I think that was the thing. For me, I don't know, maybe you can kind of like relate to this. I was like thinking I just really wanted to compete with to see if I still had all that in me. And I think I satisfied that because I was still finished in the, pretty respectfully as far as the overall finish, despite my injury.
Yeah.
But that was kind of like the little moment there where it's like maybe I pushed the throttle just a little bit too far.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I find now I still train hard. I still like to give her full throttle all the time, but I do know I have to be a little bit smarter. Where once upon a time when I was 25, for example, I'd be able to do that 5, 6, maybe 7 times a week. Day after day, just give her. Now I feel like if I train hard on a Monday, then I got to take it easy on a Tuesday if I want to really go, moderate to hard again on Wednesday. So I really got to give a day, sometimes a day and a half to recover from that blaster. But that being said, I still try to do that at least 3 times a week. Try to give her full throttle.
Good. Do you find yourself like what I should have done I should have geared down just in that 100 meter and got my, if I was playing the game rather than trying to win all the events, I should have geared down for the long run. You know what I mean? Like, do you find yourself when you're ever on the mats, just kind of like, you know, maybe not going at 100, going at like an 85 and just being smarter than your opponent who maybe doesn't have the same experience?
Yeah, that's 100%. I'm very fortunate where I train at in Ottawa. Actually, I train in multiple different places, but where I predominantly lay my hat is Gracie Baja in Ottawa. And you know, I'm there enough to know who the savages are, and then who the guys are that they like to train just to stay healthy. So I'll try to pick my training partners, and then I'll communicate with them. Say, hey man, you know, you want to go hard? You know, are you working on anything in particular? Do you have any injuries that you're working around? And then based on the answers that they give me, I'm ready to either, you know, shift gears and turn the throttle up, or, you know, ease off a little bit and then go at the pace that they want. So I think, yeah, to answer your question, like, you got to be smart for sure. Pick your training partners wisely for sure. When you're doing sports like you were just doing, more individually based, I can't say I blame you, man. Where you know it's a multiple sporting event, if you will, different exercises. It's tough to not go hard on all of them, especially if there's a little break in between. I guess looking at it like that, I would say I would look at all the events and think, what am I pretty good at, and what do I know that I'm not that good at, and then maybe adjust the throttle based on that.
Yeah, I've set like a goal in my head. I'm on this new kick where I feel like telling people my goals. I was always a big one of telling people my goals, but now I'm kind of like on this little thing where it's like, you know what, just keep my goals to myself. And I feel like telling people my goals is sometimes takes away some of the thrill of actually going after my goals. It's like you talk about them too much rather than go work at it. So I really wanted to beat my 100-meter high school time, which sounds crazy. But in the high school, I was 106. I was way obviously, you know, different build, but I was 160 pounds. I feel like now I've got more explosive muscle on me, more, you know, more of the power that I probably could have used back then. And I really wanted to go after it. And I think that's what's crazy right now. It's got me that itch. I think I had a shot at it.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I think you're onto something by sharing your goals. Maybe what I find, anyways, I'm picky with who I share my goals with, but I like to share my goals with people that I trust and who I know are going to give me some honest feedback. You know, sharing my goals with every single person who's got a set of ears, I find doesn't really have the same value that if I tell it to a buddy, he might raise his eyebrows like, I don't know, bro. You might want to think about that one. You know, and listening to somebody that I trust, like, yeah, you know, maybe that's not realistic. Where I do find sharing goals, writing goals down is very helpful. It makes it powerful, makes it more believable, makes it more attainable, I believe. So I think you're onto it, man. It's you know, that internal ego, as I like to call it. Like sometimes, you know, we got two egos inside of us. Sometimes I like to feed that wolf, and sometimes I like to keep that wolf locked up.
Yeah. So, I mean, speaking of how I mean, hundreds of listeners right now, are there any goals anything you're like working on that you really would like, you know, don't mind sharing, I guess?
Yeah, like what I try to do is I try to write down 3 goals that I'd like to achieve for the week. I usually write that down on Sunday when things are winding down for the work week, or you know, the start of the Monday work week. I'll try to write down 3 goals, and the reason I keep it at 3 is within a week. I think that's a reasonable, tangible set of, you know, it's a number set of goals that you could attain. If it becomes like 10, 11, 12 goals, sometimes we put a little bit too much pressure on ourselves and we don't actually achieve everything. And then we feel like maybe we let ourselves down or we didn't fulfill what we wanted to set. So I try to set out 3 tangible goals every week. And, you know, throughout the week, I'll check them off as you know, kind of get through them. Recently, what I'm working on is I got a couple of goals. Long-term goal, my goal is to become a black belt in jiu-jitsu by the age of 45. And right now, as you know, I've only been a brown belt for about a year. I know I got a lot of work to do, but my goal is very specific in terms of every time I'm on the mat, there's a specific thing that I'm working on. So I'll either tell my instructor or I'll tell my training partner, like, this is what I need to work on because I know this is an area of a limitation. So I've kind of set that goal for myself. Now, that being a age 45 goal, you know, I'm focusing on that every week, but at the same time, I know that that's more of a long-term goal. And then short-term goals, for an example, I'm getting ready to hit the road here today to provide some training for Garda World, the security cash services security professional. And my goal for these guys, so what they've asked me to provide for them is a train the trainer concept. So my goal is to connect with each and every one of those individuals to figure out what archetype they are, and then be able to give them something that's going to be useful for them. So my goal is to help them become better instructors. So that's, just a couple of goals that I, just sharing with you based on short term this week, and then long term by the time I'm age of 45.
Well, man, I think it's awesome to hear you talk about some of that stuff. So one of the three things, that's something that we do in my garage gym, in my team meetings every Monday. It's like, what are the three things you are going to accomplish this week? Is like, and we list them out loud to each other. The three things I'll accomplish this week. And it doesn't have to be work related. It could be like your own purpose, personal health, your relationship, whatever it is. It's just, I think that 3 is a real good number too. And I think, like, spreading yourself too thin never works very well too, right? Tactical confusion.
I agree with you 100%. And one of the goals that it seems to always fall onto my notebook when I'm writing those out is I want to be more present at home with my wife. My wife has been very supportive through my military career, through my MMA career, and now that I'm no longer in uniform and I'm no longer competing, which means I'm not training as much and I'm around home a lot more. I do find that running a business, you never really turn off. You're always, following up with an email or a text message or something where it takes your attention away from being present. So oftentimes one of my goals that almost always every Sunday is I want to show my love to my wife. I want to do something that makes her feel like she's part of this team. I want to make do something to make her feel extra special. And that sometimes can be as simple as, making her a cup of coffee first thing in the morning, or we have this thing between her and I where every now and again throughout the day, we'll just send a text which says yes. And that's all it is. And that's just an indicator that I'm thinking about you. And, when we got married, we said yes to each other and we agreed to be a team and be there for each other. So throughout the day, sometimes I get really busy, but I'll take that moment just to, quickly send a text off to my wife. And that's a small goal that I feel like, selfishly, I feel like I achieved something because I am letting her know that I feel, I'm feeling something for her, or I'm thinking about her. But I try to do a little bit more than just a text message throughout every week.
That's awesome, man. My wife and I, we do call it espresso time. So every day we have a little espresso machine. I've had it for forever, since before we were married. And every day we sit down and we have one espresso together, no phones. Even the kids know espresso time is like they can go play. That's one of the only times of the day where there's a lot on their iPads or whatever. They can go give us 15 minutes to just us. We have the freedom of, both of us work at the gym, and we only live 10 minutes from them. They're not even 5 minutes from the gym, but it's still, like you said, like sometimes that 15 minutes seems like a lot to give each other, which is crazy, in thinking of like, the jobs that you used to do in particular. And my job used to be pretty busy as well. I mean, were you with her the whole time you were in that military? Like, that's a lot of travel.
Yeah, no, I waited late. I waited. When I was at the unit, I was really focused on operations. I was really focused at being the best soldier I possibly could. And, although I had a few girlfriends here and there, I think one, maybe two really serious relationships throughout my entire 21 years. But my wife, current wife now, her and I, we got together in 2011 and we got married in 2013. So she was with me for the last 5 years of my military career. So she was with me through a couple of deployments. She was with me for the last few fights in my MMA career. So her approach was really awesome. She's super supportive. And she used to always say, I would apologize, right? I would go from job to job. Be on the road for 2 weeks, be home for a couple of days, be on the road for 2 weeks, be home for a couple of days. And then when I was home, I was at the gym training and preparing for the next fight that I would be ready for. So she didn't see me a lot. And sometimes I'd feel terrible. I feel guilty. Like, babe, like I want to spend some time with you, but I really got to take care of this. And she used to, kind of shrug her shoulders and she'd say, you do you. She said, I know this isn't forever. And, there's going to be a time where the MMA career is in the back burner or maybe in the rearview mirror. And she's like, I know your operational tempo is going to slow down. So do it while you can. And she was very supportive that way. And I'm very, very lucky for that.
That's outstanding, man. Yeah, my wife and I, we kind of like, we're the same age, kind of got married around the same time too. And then she was with me for the last couple of years of my SWAT career, and then towards the end, and then we built this gym together. But it was always the same kind of thing, and it still is. I think I think people like you and I, for what little I know about you, we kind of need to always get out and scratch that itch. Like I find, there's a lot of good books, and my masculine shirt. I'm a big believer on there are some things innate inside some of us that you need to do to be better at home. Like if I don't do those things, I think she realizes that if I'm not out pushing the envelope and doing those competitions or taking a bunch of guys out in the woods and doing some crazy shit like that I just won't be myself, and I won't be as present at home for her and the kids. So I think that's a hugely important to me and to our relationship and our success. It sounds like it is the same for you. I love hearing that.
Yeah, man, I agree with you 100%. It is important to do that stuff because I agree with you 100%. It makes us a better person to be around. If I'm not pushing it and I'm not feeling like, I got beat up a little bit at the gym, I feel like I'm not fulfilled. I'm not fulfilled. And that week becomes like, it's a little bit, I'm just not the same person unless I actually get onto the mat, mix it up with a group of guys that are putting it on me, and it might sound silly, but yeah, I definitely have that's an itch that I need to scratch every week.
Yeah, we don't really script this thing, so it's kind of going all over the place. But I love to dial back to where you were, and you talked about you're going off to trade a security company this week, and you talked about, I believe the word you used was archetype of each person in the room. I love that concept. It's funny. I coached 9-year-old baseball. I don't know how we could compare that, but I always say, team building is team building. It's if your family's your team, your operations at your special operations team's a team, but the concepts, like coaching little kids, it's all a team, and the concepts really apply. And I was talking, we had some struggles on the diamond in our last game, lost the championship game. No big deal. They're 9 years old at the end of the day, but I was like, me as a coach, how can I improve that? And, the kids were kind of confused. Some kids really got it. Some kids really didn't. I taught them all the same. And that was the problem that I'm trying to debrief on my own, is figure out how I can get, because this person learns differently than this person and this person. I think that's very important. I think a lot of coaches and instructors, I know you've probably been on millions of courses, and I've been on a fair share of courses, and coaches come in and they say it the same way over and over. And if it's not entering for, person B or person C, they just keep saying it the same, and that's not going to work. So how do you go through and determine in a short period of time with those people how you're going to teach them?
That's a great question. So I really try to ask a lot of questions, and I'll use different phrases of open-ended questions to see what kind of responses I'm getting. So for an example, if I have a good indicator, or maybe I just want to confirm whether or not somebody is a visual learner, I'll say something like, so for what I'm teaching these guys, I'm spending a day on the range, I'm helping with some firearms training, and then I'm spending a day on the mat teaching them some DT stuff. So what I'll do is I'll ask questions early. So I'll try to get to know them. I try to use their first names as much as I possibly can, so I really get to resonate and connect with them. And this is one thing I have to get better at. I'm just terrible with names. So if I don't say their names at least 2 or 3 times within the first hour or two, we could be on day 2. And to me, I look at it like a bit of a flaw. If I don't know that individual's name by the end of day 2, that's on me. I need to do better at knowing that guy's first name. It's only a group of 10, mind you, but sometimes there's so much information to share that we do overlook, that simple common ground of the most independent thing. Like, one thing that nobody will ever take from you is who you are as a person. So if your name is Tim or Jenny or Johnny or whatever, I want to connect with Jenny or Johnny or Tim. Now, what I'll do is if I think, for an example, that individual might be a visual learner, I'll ask questions like, if I give a demo, do you see what I mean? Do you visually understand what it is that I'm trying to show you? And if they say yes, then I can tell a little bit, not necessarily 100% of the time, but I can tell a little bit that they visually connect. But if somebody is more of a kinesthetic learner, I can speak and speak and speak, but unless they're actually doing it and getting their reps in, I can tell that that person needs to actually go hands-on for them to learn. So it's really cool, because some people are very analytical, some people are very matter of fact, some people need a pat on the back and constantly have their tires pumped, and some people need a kick in the ass. So it's really cool trying to figure out what type of person they are, and then being able to connect with them. So at the end of the 2 days, when they are turning around to deliver and instruct to others, they can be the best versions of themselves. And if I am able to give them one or two little nuggets to help them become a better instructor, then to me, that's a good indicator that I'm providing some good coaching and mentorship.
Yeah, and I think it's really important. It shows that you care too. Like if you're actually taking the time to get an individual rather than just deliver this mass amount of information, it shows that you care, and they're going to care about what you're saying a lot more. I think that's a huge one. And I think one that you probably do all the time without knowing too is just contact, like physical contact. I mean, it comes naturally through DT and through a lot of the firearms training and stuff, but that's, I think, is one of the biggest things. Like, there was a guy on a podcast recently that I did, and it makes a good point. You think about our teams that we were on. The teams like the NBA team that slaps five or taps each other in the butt or whatever it is, the most in a game, they did this huge test over a couple of years. They won the majority of the games, which is pretty wild, right? It, like, so that human contact, that like sense of like, hey, like putting your hand on somebody's shoulder when you first speak to them in the morning when they're coming in for their coffee before classes start rolling is super important too, I think.
I agree. You can really tell some people, most humans, I think, will resonate with, physical grounding. So say, somebody's trying to learn a skill and, it's a little bit outside of what they're capable of now. They'll get there, but they just need a little bit more time. Sometimes you can see people go into a bit of a spiral and they're hard on themselves, and they want to be perfect every time, when they're learning a new skill. And just that subtle, hand on the shoulder or hand on the elbow, it's like, hey man, you're doing great. We're just going to fine tune and we're going to polish up this area of whatever technique that we're trying to execute. And sometimes that subtle touch can be the thing that just brings them down to an equilibrium where they're able to take a couple of big deep breaths, and then maybe their focal point becomes more panoramic rather than very pinpoint.
Yeah, I find that's very effective with the 9-year-old baseball team too. It's just a hand on the back, like their neck, shoulder, like a trap area, and just like a calming voice, and get down to their level and say like, hey, you made the mistake. It's no big deal. Like, it's going to happen. It's going to happen again. Let's just go on to that next play. You can feel that. You can actually feel the tension in their little bodies kind of dissipating. I think it's kids and adults. We're a lot more alike than we like to believe. I think some of that stuff is so inherent in us as humans.
And I think with adult learners, what I really like about, delivering what I'm delivering for military law enforcement guys is, and normally I'll keep my course sizes to a maximum of 12, and it's for that reason. It's so I can connect with everybody. I've had the request in the past, can I fulfill for 20 or 24 people? And I often say no. I'll come back multiple times if you want, but the reason I keep the group sizes for a maximum of 12 is so I can build rapport with each individual. And through a few bits of studies, organizational behavior, human behavior, and psychology, there are some studies out there that have supported the fact that adult learners are influenced most heavily by pain, fear, and embarrassment. So if they feel like they're doing something that could cause pain, they're going to be really invested. If they're doing something that, if they're not good at it, they may have a small fear of embarrassing themselves, they are definitely going to be connected. So pain, fear, and embarrassment are some of the studies that I've read with connecting with adult learners. So when I'm building a course curriculum, of course, I'm not thinking about, applying pain. I am, however, trying to make them uncomfortable, right? So I'm trying to put them outside their comfort zone. And I truly believe where we learn the most and where we grow the most is at the edge of discomfort. So when I'm providing a curriculum, I want to see what these folks are capable of, but I also want them to see what potential they could tap into if they become comfortable with being uncomfortable, so to speak. So I find getting to connect with adult learners and figuring out what their archetypes are and what drives them, it really helps with the overall package that I'm delivering.
Man, I love that. I just wrote that down. That's what I love about these talks, man. I come on a podcast, I learn something or take away something, like, and a great way to put it. So like, I understand what you're saying, but that was a great way to explain it. Like sometimes you're, as somebody who's been doing or coaching or training people a lot, you do things, but you don't have a way of articulating them. I think that's been a really cool thing too about getting a few special operations guys. It's like, you're not just meatheads, man. Like, I think that's the stereotype. I mean, it was in the police world, it's the same thing they put on SWAT guys. Those guys just work out and shoot guns and sharpen their knives all day. It's like the ability to articulate what you're saying and to get across and to make it so that somebody in the civilian world totally understands what you're trying to do. And I think like the pain, fear, embarrassment, I think we're working so hard, and I feel like you're probably on the same page as me. We're working so hard to take all those feelings out of the world that it's softening us to a degree that it's made it like honest conversation is seen as aggressive now.
Yes.
And like that's part of this shirt, the aggressively masculine. It's like it honest is not aggressive. Honest is honest, and we should all be doing that, and we wouldn't have the resent, because resent comes from not being clear, right? Yes. So I love hearing you say that. So how do you break that down? And like when you go into a corporate setting, I assume you do teach. We should probably talk about direct action a little bit, who you teach and what you teach, but how do you break that down in a corporate setting? Because even police, civilian, first responders is becoming a corporate setting. That's one of the reasons why I don't work there anymore. Like, right? So how do you get rid of that but still apply it?
I'm very matter of fact. Like I don't sugarcoat anything. I'm pretty concise and to the point, and I don't mind if I hurt somebody's feelings by something that I said. That's not my intent. If that happens, I look at it like that. That's a you problem. That's not a me problem. So I don't allow my delivery to be affected by the potential that I may hurt somebody's feelings. So in other words, if I'm trying to provide something for anybody, that's a good example. We'll use a strength and conditioning client. So if I have a strength and conditioning client that is interested in learning how to use a blade, for example, or they want to get better at conditioning, but they also want to learn some self-defense. Got it, no problem. But if this individual is 55 pounds overweight, they're unable to run 100 meters, then I'm going to say to the person, let's work on your conditioning first, and then we'll layer on the self-defense, because it does not matter how much self-defense you know or what you're good at. If you don't have the conditioning to support it up, it's backwards. Now, they may not want to hear that, and maybe they're paying for a specific service, which I have to balance, right? If they're coming to me, they're paying for self-defense training, well, then I need to give them self-defense training. But I'm also okay with the fact that I will identify if their conditioning is poor. So, they may not want to hear it, but that's exactly what they need to hear in order for them to become a better version of themselves. So I think my approach is, concise to the point. And if in the delivery of conversation, it happens to strike a nerve with somebody, well, I look at it like this. If I say something that bothers somebody, then it probably applies to them, right? If it doesn't bother them, they'll probably shrug their shoulders and just get on with it. So I guess my approach is very much, to the point, and I'm just honest. I'm honest, and some people don't like to hear the truth.
Yeah, I try to, like, when I go into these groups, I have a group of firemen I was talking to recently, and same as you're saying, like, okay, your training is great. You guys, you have all this training on, vehicle extractions and how to enter a premise and all these things. However, if your baseline conditioning is extremely low, your ability to use those skills is going to diminish, because you and I know that under stress, under physical duress, those skills will diminish, right? Like, and you're going to fall to that base of your training, which includes fitness training. It's not just like, I'm really good with a gun, I'm 100 pounds overweight. Like that will reduce your efficiency with that weapon and it goes for all those things. And I think, like, I try to start my classes or my talks or my training with that, like, hey, the things I'm going to say, you might not want to hear them, but they're probably, if you get offended, you probably needed to hear it. And it's coming from an honest place of kindness. It's because I want you to improve. I don't care that you're 100 pounds overweight. Tomorrow, I want you to be 99.5 pounds overweight. Exactly. That's where it comes from, for improvement. And then I find that people who shut off because of that honesty, they don't want to improve anyway. And they probably shouldn't be on this course or be part of that service, to be honest with you. Unfortunately, that'll never be the case. But that's kind of where I think it should be. And I think that I love being in the private side of things, where it's like, I say things, and that is what it is. It's my belief, not any agencies other than my own.
That's exactly it. And if people are coming to direct action to train, it's because they did their own research, sought it out, or it was recommended through somebody, so through word of mouth. So they already have an idea of what they're getting into. It's not for everybody. I've had a few clients come and go, and they've been completely honest with me, which I appreciate. And they've said stuff like, man, this is just too intense, or it's not what I'm looking for. Okay, that's fine. It's not for everybody, and that's okay. But I really respect and appreciate your honesty. not giving me, you know, a line about some BS that is just an excuse to exit. They're honest with me, like, man, like this is way more intense than what I thought, and it's not for me. Okay, it's all right. It's no problem.
I'm loving this so far. So like, definitely want to talk about some of your military stuff, because just from a geeky standpoint, I want to hear some of those things. But direct actions. So like, when did it come about? What do you do? Like, tell us more. And, you know, maybe we do have a lot of first responders and some admin that listen to this. Maybe we can get you some work.
So when I decided to release from the military, it was a tough decision because I was still young. I was only 40 years old. I felt like I still had, 10, at least 10 years of fight left in me, for sure. So I was a bit torn because I love doing the job. I love deploying. I love being around the guys that are, highly motivated, go-getters. And I was on the fence, but I also knew if I was going to do something new, that was a good time to do it, because I was still young enough, lots of legs and energy to get the direct action brand and business up and running. So when I started it, I thought, what do I really enjoy doing most of all? And I read a book, or I heard the saying a long time ago, when you're doing something that you love, it'll never feel like work. So I said, well, what do I enjoy doing? I love everything that has to do with holistic nutrition and just being really healthy. So I knew I was going to dabble a little bit in nutrition and strength and conditioning. Absolutely anything that has to do with fighting, self-defense, defensive tactics. I absolutely love it. I have a very obvious passion for it. And firearms training, specifically tactical firearms in close range, anything that has to do with CQB related. These are the things that I enjoy the most. So I started to formulate a plan and try to put a package together that would not only be something for military and law enforcement, but I also wanted to provide for the general public. And what I found was, over the years, I've been very fortunate where I've traveled to almost 50 different countries across the world. And I really made, I made a strong effort to seek out the culture, and not only seek out the culture, but find places to train. And I would train when I was on the road, when I was traveling, either sometimes for personal or when it was with work. And every country that I went into, there was subtle differences, but a lot of similarities with either the martial arts that was being trained or the culture that was being lived. And you learn a lot from that. So what I did is I essentially just took all of these lessons learned, and I started to kind of put it all in the blender and, blend it up. And then what I looked at was, okay, there is definitely a need and I would say a desire for Canadian citizens to become a hard target. So basically, like, be a hard target, avoid being a soft target. And how do we get you there? How do we help a law enforcement professional or a military professional do better at their job and be an asset to the environment that they're working and not a liability? Same with the general public. There are a lot of folks out there who have reached out to me and said, man, I'm so happy to have found you. I always had to travel to the States to get this type of training. Now that they see that it's available here in Canada, people are reaching out, and it's becoming more and more common. So what I was trying to do, and what I'm doing with the direct action brand, is I'm trying to harden our society one person at a time. And I know that's a very ambitious goal, but every person that I have the opportunity to interact with, I look at them, chat with them, build rapport with them, and then I think, how can I make this person just a little bit stronger, a little bit wiser, a little bit more situationally aware, a little bit safer, a little bit more of a weapon in terms of when they walk through life, and they're running their routine daily chores, for example, how can they be more confident with their ability to really be an asset to our society and not a liability?
Yeah, I think that's great. And the liability thing, I think that during COVID, like vaccine, no vaccine, at the end of the day, if you weren't taking care of yourself, even before COVID existed, it just wasn't as pronounced. You are a little bit of you're a liability on Canada. You're a liability on our healthcare system. And that's one thing I really wish the government would have taken a bigger stand on, was kind of getting after that and saying, like, hey, take control of your health. Like, maybe let's throw some money at fitness, make some kind of tax credit if you have a gym membership, things like that, so people would take a little bit more of their own ownership to be more of an asset to our country and to everybody else. and like not leading that upon the military, the first responders. Every single person with more ownership there, I think, would put us in a much, much better place. I love that you're doing that. And I found, and you probably had this experience, is like when I ran my first blast camp, which is a men's camp for basic leadership and survival tactics. I knew like the guys coming out were gonna love the shooting. They're gonna love the hand-to-hand combat stuff. That's just good adrenaline things. What I didn't know is I started teaching as fillers. Just what it's like when you run a 70. You've probably done a lot longer, but mine was like a condensed version of our SWAT selection for a weekender, right? So 70 hours ish of limited sleep. So it is important that we give them downtime, but they don't feel like they're having downtime. So they're sitting in a chair, they're learning some stuff. And I put in situational awareness as some filler. And at the end of it, the feedback I got was like, that was some of the best stuff we learned all weekend. I'm like, holy shit. Like, I think like you take on, you don't realize some of the stuff that you learn and how it is very much applies to, every person, not just military, law enforcement, etc. It can very much apply to your everyday. And if you have some kind of situational awareness, you're one step left to bang, I guess, when something does go wrong. Like, I don't think that you're teaching people to, maybe you are, to teach, to build a cache of weapons in their backyard and have a, like the people on that you see on some of these HBO specials. We're teaching people to just be ready to be a first responder until first responders get there.
That's right. That's exactly it. 100% is, you provide awareness and let people know what they're capable of. Like, the reality is, a first responder, a police officer, an ambulance in a dire circumstance, in a chaotic situation, yes, they are going to be on their way. They are. But it's not going to be 3 minutes. It may not be 10 minutes. It might be 15 minutes before they get there, depending on where you are geographically. So in that amount of time, which you and I both know, a lot of things can happen in 3 minutes. If we are in that position to do something about it, wouldn't you want to have the skills to do something about it? Rather than watching it like a knucklehead with their phone stuck out to record it, put the phone down and do something about it. That's what I'm trying to share with people, is have the courage and have the skills to back up the courage to actually do something positive about the situation.
Yeah, be the person on the being videotaped rather than the person doing the videotaping. Like 100%. That's me. We just got back from a cottage trip, and I put all my buddies, who none of them, my core group of friends from as long as I can remember, none of them have any background in that stuff. And I put them through my blast program. I needed to fill the spots for my first time I was selling this thing. And I said, hey guys, guess what? And they all came on it. And now we go to the cottage last week, and I bring my medical pack. We're a long way from a hospital, and everybody knows where it is. We all know what the emergency plan is. Like, there's just that much. And people say to me in the past on these courses, like, doesn't that make you feel neurotic, or like you're always worried? I said, no, it actually gives me a vast amount of confidence. And you can see the confidence in my friends who are not in these situations, yes, and their wives, through knowing that we are prepared to deal with if one of these children, God forbid, got hit with a boat motor, or something bad happened. We're prepared as much as we can be.
That's right.
Help things on the way. And I think that gives you more confidence and allows me to have more fun, really, than it does make me paranoid.
I agree with that. And I would say to add to that is, a wise man I had a great opportunity to work with down in the States one time said something to me, and it stuck with me. And he said, Randy, a little bit of paranoia will keep us sharp. Too much paranoia will leave us incapacitated to be combat effective. So in other words, we'll have so much paranoia, we're unable to live a healthy, happy life. So a little bit of paranoia keeps us sharp, and that's a good thing. Too much paranoia, if it's not managed and controlled, can really leave us with high levels of anxiety and really combat ineffective. And that stuck with me. And I feel like being prepared is one thing, but also, looking around and paying attention to what's going on, it becomes a behavioral trait that is just inherently or innately executed without even thinking about it. So a little bit of paranoia keeps you sharp, and too much can be problematic. So trying to find that balance of what does that look like? Well, everybody is going to be a little bit different. I truly believe not everybody is a warrior out there, and not everybody is, a kindergarten school teacher. So know what you're good at and know what your limitations are, and then try to bridge the gap a little bit. I truly believe, I don't think, anybody would want to see me, Randy Turner, teaching, kindergarten kids. I probably would not have the same effect as somebody that's maybe a little bit more empathetic or maybe a little bit more patient. I'm just using that as an example. But my point simply being is it's okay to be a little bit paranoid because it means you're sharp and you're aware of what's going on. Too much, can leave you combat ineffective.
Yeah, and you can't really measure how much that sharpness and preparedness has helped you to avoid situations. Like use the college as an example. There's a fire pit, the kids are out running around playing soccer, tag football, whatever they're playing. And just to take the minute to be like, hey, if I just put these chairs in front of the fire pit, we've created a 3-second or 5-second gap from a child just falling in the fire pit. Like,
Right.
I have no idea if a kid would have fallen in there, but I do know that by doing that allowed me to now enjoy my cigar on the dock with my buddies without having to stare at that fire pit. Like that, I think that's in a real simplified way what we're talking about here.
Yes.
Like, and perhaps saved us an emergency at some point. We'll never know and never need to know and never want to know, frankly.
That's right. Yeah. Tony, can you just hang on just 1 second? I'm just
Yeah,
gonna my smoke detector upstairs. The battery's dead and it keeps going off. I'm just gonna unplug
I
it.
can hear that. I was wondering what that was.
Give me
Speaking
10
of
seconds.
direct action, be ready. So I'll take this minute to while Randy stepped away to fix his fire escape. I want to thank Murray Insurance, Ian and Kara Murray, Garage Gym OGs, for constantly and always sponsoring and supporting the Garage Gym and the Tango One podcast. If you're looking for help with your insurance, whether that be finance, cars, home, automobile, go see them. They're a one-stop shop and they have the best customer service. They're constantly giving back to the Kingsville and Essex County community. Please go see them and tell them that Tango One sent you. Took advantage of that to get in our sponsors. It's all set now. Did you pull out the wire?
Yeah, just disconnected it for a minute. So hopefully that will clear it up for now.
Yeah, I could see every time it beeped, you and I, both of our eyes were rolling around. I'm thinking, is that my house or his house? Yeah. So man, I appreciate all your. This is awesome talking to you. I love when we get on these when I get on these calls or these podcasts with people and like there's no script and it's just like you really feel what the other person's saying. It's awesome to see, man. So when we talk about your military career, I know we don't go into details on this stuff. I'm always like feel like I'm skirting the edges with you guys. But man, you talk about one thing I love is travel. 50 countries. What an opportunity. That's probably underapprecited by the citizen like me. When I think about a military career, I'm thinking of the cool stuff, that you've probably been able to do and the training you've been access to, but the countries, that's got to be the coolest part, man, to me.
Yeah, it was great. I was very, very fortunate. So traveled a lot with the military career and wherever we were. I mean, obviously there was a task and a job that we had to do. But normally traveling either into country or when we're leaving the country, there would be, multiple stopovers in different areas. So I always try to find time to get out and, get to explore the culture a little bit and get to know some of the people. And oftentimes I would try to find a local gym and train, jiu-jitsu or anything, Krav Maga, it didn't matter. Whatever was available in that close proximity, I would go in, introduce myself. Hey, and I'm Randy, I'm Canadian, I'm just traveling through, I'm just looking to train. And oftentimes, people were very open and welcome to, let me come in like I was part of the team. And it was really awesome, man. So very fortunate. Some of those travels were for personal, but a lot of those things were with military related. So yeah, I feel very fortunate to be given those opportunities.
Yeah. So were you able to take advantage of, imagine like you're saying South America on an operation, and then now you're on leave or the operation's over, so you can grab a cheaper jump flight to another place you wanted to visit? Was that something like between?
Yeah. So sometimes
I sound stupid right now. I have no clue what you guys actually do, but that's what I was imagining.
Yeah, so sometimes it would be those particular situations. If it was operational, not so much, because we would arrive as a team, we would leave as a team. But if it was in training, sometimes we could pre-plan ahead of time. So at the end of this training block, I'm going to stay back, fly here because it's a cheaper flight, and then from there spend a couple of days and then fly home. So if it was somewhere close by, I would either plan it. Training wise, we had a little bit more flexibility if we were traveling for training, as opposed to when we're traveling for operations, because typically we would arrive as a team and then we would redeploy as a team. So we didn't have as much flexibility. But yeah, to answer your question, yeah, oftentimes whenever we were traveling through, we would connect in another country. And if there was time and opportunity, I definitely would take advantage of that for sure.
And what were some of the highlights, maybe countries that you would recommend, or maybe maybe countries that people don't really would think about traveling to that you might recommend?
Yeah, like one spot, I was very fortunate. We spent a few weeks training in Israel, and on the back end side, we had a little bit of downtime before our flights. Actually, if I remember correctly, our flights were delayed by a day or two, so all of our training was completed, and we had a couple of days just to kind of just chill out and and go visit. So I had an opportunity to bounce around a few different areas in Israel, and it was really cool, man. Not just getting to know the culture a little bit, but actually I'll talk a little bit about that. So the Israeli culture, for those that may not be aware, they have a very strong security mindset. So whether or not they're 12 years old or 30 years old, they're very security conscious. And some people might look at that like that's paranoia. I looked at it like they're prepared because they're always under scrutiny. They're constantly defending themselves, and in a scrap with somebody, they've just built a culture of security awareness, which I found really interesting. So that was a pretty cool country to get a chance to travel to, train, and get to see the culture a little bit. Brazil was really cool. I had an opportunity to train there, did some jiu-jitsu in Brazil. Thailand, got to train there both on personal and to focus on some Muay Thai skills. So these are some great countries. The people, the food, and just the culture of not just martial arts, but different cultures, as deal with different things. And I can say, with all of the travel that I had the opportunity to fulfill, coming back to Canada, you look at things a little bit differently. And I'm not so sure that Canadians realize how good we have it in Canada, because it's all they know, right? So what I found is sometimes I would come back from maybe a deployment or a foreign country, and I would get a little bit frustrated over some of the things that Canadians would get kind of twisted about. And I'd shake my head like, why is that even of importance to you? It's such a small thing. But what I found was it's unfair for me to look at it like that, because as a Canadian who's dealing with whatever crisis that they deem is a crisis and not a challenge, that's them. That's them. That's all they know. It's not their fault, so to speak. But what I found was, probably, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago, I stopped judging. I stopped judging Canadians for the bullshit that they would complain about, and I stopped judging myself because of the experiences I've been so fortunate to garnish over the years. It was kind of jading me a little bit on looking at how such a small thing that is not a big deal becomes a really big thing to some people who have never seen any real true hardships. So it's been a blessing and a curse, I guess you could say.
Yeah, man, that hits home, that last statement, with me too. And my father, he was chief of police for a while, and he got to go to Israel for this thing for like 3-4 weeks, and he absolutely loved it. I remember him bringing me home a special forces, Israeli special forces T-shirt that somebody had given him, and I wore that thing. Being a kid who was interested in that all the time. And Brazil, my wife and I spent my 40th birthday in Brazil. There was Randa Marcos, who's a fighter, UFC fighter from Windsor. I was her trainer, and one of the highlights of my life was going to Sao Paulo and watching her fight in the UFC and being just involved in that. And then we spent the next 2 weeks kind of backpacking through. And man, I of all the countries, I know there's some extreme poverty and violence in Brazil, but I mean, I live across from Detroit. I felt very safe traveling, and the people there were so like welcoming and kind. What a beautiful country that was. But what you said there that hit home with me was I used to carry so much resent towards people when I'd be in parties and things like that, and people would say like, "What's the worst thing you've ever seen?" Or you would just be so, I'd be so angry, or listening to them complain about this or that, or what their job did, knowing that. I remember going to a party, and I'd just been at the murder of a child, and I'm at a party, a New Year's Eve party, and listening to people complain about their job or whatever that was. And I remember being so angry. And now I wish I had this kind of wisdom, or maybe I'd taken care of some of my own issues before that, to like, it's a badge of honor for us to, they are that innocent because people like you have done what you've done to protect that innocence, right? And I think like if police officers wore that more of a badge, and I wish I would have wore it more of a badge, that these people don't know what I'm seeing at nighttime because I'm doing what I'm seeing when they're in bed, right? Like that's something I think first responders should take more gratitude in, or be more like respectful of for themselves, and be more rather than taking that out on the average citizen. It's because of you that they are like that, and they go to and those like big issues aren't their problem. It was yours because you did such a great job.
100%. And like sometimes I'll when I get the opportunity to chat with law enforcement guys, like I believe I have a ton of respect for law enforcement, and I believe they have one of the hardest jobs because they're damned if they do and they're damned if they don't. So they're trying to do the best that they can. They're dealing with, they're dealing with the shit of our society, right? They're dealing with all the shitheads on a daily basis. They do their job well, they get ridiculed. If they don't do their job well, or maybe something went a little bit sideways, they get ridiculed. So they have a hard place to be in, where it doesn't seem like anything they do is good enough or it's the right answer, which is unfortunate. And sometimes I'll share with them, like, you are changing and you are making our society a better place. Please keep doing what you're doing, because without you, we would be living in turmoil and in chaos on a daily basis. And it's tough because, different from when you paint your fence. At the end of the day, you can look back at what you did, right? And you can see, the efforts that you put forward. It's a little bit different with law enforcement. You don't always see the efforts that you put forward. So it's tough, a very tough position. I can only imagine. And I'm only speaking from what some guys have shared their experiences with me, which I really appreciate. So it's tough sometimes where if you don't have that tangible thing that you can see, well, because of what I did, this is much better. I believe that without law enforcement, our society would be in a real bad place. So for what it's worth, everybody that's out there, active or retired, thank you for what you've done, and keep doing what you're doing. And I'll segue that with, my military experience. I spent a lot of time in Afghanistan, and when we withdrew from Afghanistan, there was a lot of us that believed we left too soon. The job was not completed. We could have been there for another 5, maybe 10 years and done some really good work. And I know there's a lot of people back home who don't have the fulsome understanding of what it is that we were doing over there, who would quickly say, bring all the troops home. It's a waste of time. It's a waste of money. I disagree. Wholeheartedly, I disagree. The things that we were able to achieve in Afghanistan, we allowed and we provided young children to go to school. We allowed and we provided farmers to learn how to farm properly so they can cultivate their own crops and they can sustain their own livelihood. If we weren't there, and if we didn't do the things that we did, and not just Canadians, I'm talking about all of the allied nations that put a good foot forward to make Afghanistan a better place, it was all for a reason and for a purpose. And without getting all the information and without being there to see the actual fruits of the labor, it's very easy to make judgments when you're living in Canada and your biggest concern is what shirt is on sale at the local supermarket or whatever, right? It's just not the same. So I believe that we did make a difference. I believe that we did provide for, if we were there for Canadians, we're there for 20 years. And because of what we were able to do, there was a lot of Afghanis that have lived a better life because of that. So it was worth it. And it's tough to quantify what it is that we did while we were there, but I truly believe to the core of my being, it was not a waste, and it was value added 100%.
Yeah, man. I mean, all I know is what I read and see, and from speaking to men and women who've been in similar positions to you, and that seems to be the overarching like message that they want to get out. A very good friend who's a Marine in the States, and we had him on just after all that Afghanistan, the last little bit of stuff happened about, should they come home, should they stay? And that was his thing. He's like, it's not really about us or anything. It was about like those people that we saw in those small villages, and the children that we saw, that I really think, all the forces combined, all the nations really helped to provide for. Like, those are the people that are forgotten, because that's not what's really put out on the news, right? That's not the glorification stuff. That's not the exciting things that people are eating up.
That's right. And I think there could be a lot to be said. Like, bring the troops home. Did you ask the troops? Did anybody ask the troops if they want to come home? But because I bet you 90% of them would say, heck no, this is what I signed up for. This is what I want to do. This is why I'm here. You ask any combat arms soldier who had the opportunity to get his feet dirty in Afghanistan, if you ask them, hey man, things are sparking up again, you want to go back? 90% of them would say yes. 90% of them would be chomping at the bit to get after it. So like, bring the troops home. You got to be careful with making strong comments like that, because there's a lot of them that they're not done. The job is not done, and they're not ready to come home until the job is done.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to not listen to the public in those situations. I know that from. I mean, one of the reasons I'm not in law enforcement now is because I just felt like they didn't want me to enforce law. Like that was my holdup, was like, at the true core, we all signed up to bring in home bad guys, to bring in the bad guys, to make the world safer, and you on just a vaster level, a worldly level, me in my little town, right? And when the community and the people that were get to enjoy the freedoms of that don't want it done anymore because they don't completely understand it, that's when it became very hard for me. And that's why one of the reasons where we met there at the OTAB with Nash's and on his course, I went in and spoke to them because of what you said, a little while back, was like, without these guys and girls, we were going to be a real bad way. And I don't want people to do what I did. I don't want people to quit when they're at the top of their careers and still producing and still good at what they do. And a lot of people won't be able to quit because they don't have the security to quit, or the other skill set, because you've spent so many years developing that skill set, and you won't have the courage. And then the even bigger problem would be is if now you feel trapped in a job that you hate, underappreciated, you can't leave. That's when the bigger things like suicides and and domestics and things like that are going to occur. Alcohol, drugs. There's going to be something to escape that, and that's what I don't want people to do, and that's why I go into police services and fire departments now to deliver that message, because like, do the things so you don't turn out like me, where you feel like the only way out of this is to take that uniform off and to stop contributing in that way. So I hope some people take something from that, and I hope from what you've said too, it's just there's a lot more going on than gets released, and a lot bigger situations. And at the end of the day, I think soldiers, firemen, policemen, paramedics, whatever it is, we all signed up to help. We didn't sign up to cause the bad. And
yeah, like, and there's always going to be a percentage of bad apples, we'll say. And what I find, Canada can be, they're very strong with their opinions and very fickle with their support. And because of the actions of one or two, there are harsh decisions made or policies put into place because of one or two bad apples. And to me, that's a huge problem. We can address those one or two bad apples, and we can either clean them up, help them out, provide some mentorship, or if need be, cut them away. Cut away the 1 or 2%. But really, that 89, 90% that are really doing the work and really want to be there, they know that they got into that profession by choice. Nobody put a gun to their head. There are some people that are maybe motivated by the wrong reasons. Maybe they have an ego trip and they want to be able to carry a gun. Whatever the reasons are, we cannot be in everybody's head. But what we can know is we can address those things head on. When somebody is a bad apple, or they're carrying themselves on in a less than optimal approach, and they're not upholding a level of professionalism that we as a society and we as an institution agree upon, well, then we need to address that. We need to address that with a firm hand too. And I think sometimes that doesn't get addressed out of fear of whatever, being ridiculed, or how they're going to be viewed, or fear of policy, or some bullshit that is not getting to the root of the problem. My point is, with that small handful of bad apples, get to the root of the problem. And if it's a snake in the grass, cut the head off and get rid of them. Cut them away, because the overall general population of that institution or of that society is going to benefit because of it. So, that's where I think sometimes having those hard conversations where, yeah, somebody's feelings may get hurt along the way. Yeah, that's going to happen. But if that means, the betterment of the overall institution is going to gain because of that, well, then let's have that conversation. And I think sometimes that gets avoided because of whatever HR or policy or whatever the reasons are. It's softness is really what it is. Rather than dealing with it head on, people would rather tiptoe through the tulips with that bullshit. And then that bad apple, it can be cancerous, right? So that bad apple will grow and grow and grow. And then if we don't nip it in the ass, then now that becomes the norm. And I believe that is a problem that we can fix. It's not easy, but it's not impossible.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I know we could really go down that rabbit hole. But again, my opinion, if you want to fix like some of the problems in policing in North America, I mean, hire slow, fire fast, and dump so much more into training and recovery.
Yes.
I think a lot of like you said, I can't speak to the military. I think that is the day in, day out of policing, 12 hours a day, coming back, doing it again and again and again for now multiplied by 30 years.
Right.
Desensitizes you. And the training, because of how busy they are, they're not getting the training they need, and then they're definitely not getting the recovery. And that's a terrible balance. And I think like the funding is insane. It's actually funding more, getting more resources, better training, and more in terms of downtime, like where they could be training and off the road. And I think that would really help. I know that's light years away. I hope that's where it's going, but we're just a couple of guys on a podcast trying to solve the world's problems. I do have a couple of questions outside of this for you. So this has all been awesome, but one of the things that I know we talked about before, and competition is healthy. Let's hit on that a little bit, because I think that's where we lose ourselves. And I think, and competition isn't like, hey, I got a nicer minivan than my neighbor, or I got, my kids on the travel team and my neighbor plays house league. Like competition, I think that's where a lot of us like older guys, something we lose. And if we lose competition and we lose that drive, we lose testosterone, and all those things start to dip, and it all leads to bad health. So what do you think about that?
I think competition is healthy, and competition should be embraced, and excuse me, should be embraced 100% in all walks of life, in all professions, and everywhere you go. And you know what, if I had the time, the money, the resources, I would travel from coast to coast in Canada, and I would walk into every grade school, every public school I could, and I would target ages between 5 and 8 years old. And I would walk in, I'd say, listen, little Johnny, listen, little Susie, what is it that you want to do? You're 5 years old, you're 8 years old, whatever. Kids have big dreams, and we need to embrace that. And our kids are our future. And that's why I would target that age demographic. And, with the opportunity, if I had it, I would walk into each and every one of these classrooms and I'd say, what do you want to do? What do you want to be? I want to be a police officer. I want to be an architect. I want to be a doctor. Awesome. Know that you can do that. You can do that. But the only way to achieve that is through hard work. And along the way, you are going to compete for that position, because there are other little Johnnies and other little Susies who want that job as well. So how bad do you want it? You don't just get it for showing up. You don't just get a medal for showing up. You have to work for it, and you have to prove that you have the attributes that are fitting for that job. Now, some people might say, that's ridiculous. A 5-year-old shouldn't even be thinking about that. I disagree 100%. I think if we start at a young age and we guide them at a young age, and that's not just the teacher's duty, that is not just the parents' duty, that is everybody's duty. We all have a duty to help show young kids the way to behave, how to treat another human being with respect, how to compete for things that you want, how that when we don't get what we want, that's okay. Call it a loss, call it a setback, call it whatever you want. You can put whatever title you want on it, but failure is a necessary requirement to develop and grow and persevere through those competitions. And I believe competition is a good thing. And, sometimes we come out on top, and sometimes we don't. Like the analogy I use sometimes in jiu-jitsu, some days you're the hammer and some days you're the nail. And that's the reality, man. And that is all good. That should be embraced and accepted. 100%.
Absolutely, man. And I mean, people that say that doesn't work. I have 2 sons, and it's constantly about our values and our standards of this family. And it's constant. It's, we use 4 words and they know them. And, and the other day, my boy took a ball off the face on the diamond, right? And I know he's not hurt. I know it hurts him. I don't know he's not hurt, right? And and what is it? It's just what is this, Ron? Are you, what is our values? And one of them is warrior and strength, protector of our family, right? And self-awareness. And those are the things we repeat those words. And like, what is it? And he's like, warrior dad, and he's 7 years old, and he knows, and he's going to stay in that game, and he's going to keep fighting for his team because he protects his team. And like, I think that's very important. And all the teams that I coach, we start with values every single day. Every single day is the 4 values. We write them on the inside of all the little boys' hats. And courage, resilience, support, effort. That's the teams that I coach. We all have that written in our hats or on our jerseys, and they know it. And it's an easy referral to any behavior. Like, we had a bad inning, like you said, we failed. We lost the championship the other day. Okay, well, how does this play? Resilience. Do we have resilience? Yes. Okay, then let's go back. Do we have the courage to come back out even after we lost or made an error? Yes. And I think like it's proving that like having those little kids think about that is making them into better baseball players is not the point.
Yeah.
Better people, better, contributing to our society, hopefully in 10 years, and leaders in our society in 10 years.
Man, I agree. And competition and those values and those ethics are, in my opinion, the foundation to to build a strong house on. Without those clear set values and the morals and the ethics that we carry on and move through life every single day, it's tough to avoid all the negativity. There's so much negative light shed on everything that it's tough to avoid it. But we have the power to focus on what we want to focus on, and being the best version of ourselves is really all that we can control. One thing I really like about wrestlers and wrestling, and I'll be honest with you, like jiu-jitsu was probably my first love in martial arts, but then wrestling is a very close second. And the thing I absolutely love about wrestling is it's hard. It is hard on the body and it's hard on the mind. And those athletes are tough. But what's really cool about wrestling is there are no belts. There are no tangible collection of where you are skill wise. And those guys still show up on the mat every single day. They train their hearts out every single day, and they're doing it because they believe in it, and because it's developing a level of resiliency physically and mentally. They're not doing it because they're waiting for their next belt promotion. They're not doing it because they're waiting for that next accreditation or that next pat on the back. They do it because they're all in, and they see the benefits of that sport. And I absolutely love it, man. I think for that alone, that's why if you walk in any martial arts club, you'll see it. There's a jiu-jitsu class of 50 athletes. There's a Muay Thai class of 50 athletes. And then there's a wrestling class of maybe 10. And you'll see there's a very different mentality with wrestlers than there is with any other practitioner, in my opinion. And I think a lot of that has to do with the collection of a belt color, or the collection of another stripe on your belt, or that, that being recognized for, showing up 5 days a week. I believe that deserves a pat on the back, and I do believe that this deserves to be acknowledged. However, the mentality is very different. Some people will stick it out because they want that next belt. Wrestlers, they're there because they know that it's benefiting them.
Yeah, that's true. They're grinders. My experience, they're grinders, man. Yeah. Man, this has been an absolutely awesome conversation. I feel like we definitely have to have an episode 2, the follow-up. It's just, from me, just seriously, thank you for all your service. But mostly, man, like, not to discount your military service, like what you're doing now, I think is very, very important, and it's happening here, and it's happening, to our men and women right here. And that's amazing too. So you're still contributing, man. I know that was like one of my things is like, when I left the police service, it's like, man, am I still giving back? And you definitely are. So congratulations on both fronts. And we're grateful for everything that you've done in your long military career, man.
I appreciate it, man. And likewise, like I know you had a colorful career in uniform, and that deserves to be celebrated and recognized for sure. And I know you're doing what you're doing right now, which is benefiting others as well. And I agree, and I would echo your sentiment. Like, I will always be in service. I'm always in service to others, and I'm okay with that. And that's why I know for a fact I loved my military career, but I know the purpose of why I'm on this earth. I'm doing it right now, and I will always be in service to somebody other than myself, and I'm okay with that. I'm not above, cleaning the toilets in the bathroom. I am not above, extending a hand. I'm not above helping somebody out. I'm not above, sweeping the mat. And I'll be in service to others for a long, long time. And that's what that's my purpose, and that's what gets me out of bed every morning.
It's amazing, man. The mission of this podcast, Tango One Solutions, I think that that sums it up perfectly. The motto is do more for others, be more for yourself, and you are the epitome of that. So thank you for coming on the podcast today, and we are over and out, guys.
Now's the time to do more and be more.